Okay, obviously it's been a while since I've uploaded to this channel, if anyone's still really watching, but something important I've learned in my time away is that as far as what goes on this channel and the other one, it doesn't really matter anymore, in a good way. Like, sure, views and subs and stuff like that would be great, but I don't care as much, you know? I've decided to keep making content on both channels, but things are gonna be different. Things are gonna be different around here. New man, new plan, new year, new me. I am a quarter now. That's crazy. It's also crazy to reacquaint myself to talking to the camera again so that we can have that one-to-one connection, you know? No schedule, but there will be uploads. I have stuff to say. I'm not necessarily saying I'm gonna be a vlogger, but I am gonna just have more videos where I just kind of talk about things, especially shit that's relevant to me, whether it be like money, finance, creative pursuits. It's kind of nice to just talk sometimes. It's like blogging, but in video form. I don't know if you've heard of it. I had that exact thought at like 3 a.m. and I was like, dude, why hasn't anyone ever thought of this? It's like, you can blog, but in a video. It's revolutionary. I'm a genius. I realized like an hour later, yes, motherfucker, people have been doing this. It's like ancient history at this point. I see more value to it. I think it's just because a lot of this stuff I keep in, and I don't like boring people. But also, did my light just die? That's how long I've been talking. But anyways, expect more. Like this channel, the one with just my name, it's gonna have more of my creative more me being candid, because that's what I felt like was always separating the two channels. It's just like this, it's like the creative shit where I put like my short films, the entrance to contests for like short film contests, travel edits, shit like that. It's still gonna be that. It's definitely gonna be more my creative outlet, more like, I wouldn't say serious, because I'm still gonna be like dumb on here, just not like dumb on purpose. Dumb on purpose for like comedic effect, I mean. Yeah, so that's the other channel is still gonna be more like meme focused. Whatever doesn't fit on this will go on the other one for sure, and vice versa. So expect that. Yeah, for anyone who's still watching and who is like kind of supported me, right, in this creative journey throughout the years, thanks a lot. Let's take a look at my notes real quick. See? New me. I mean, I'd script everything out before. Doing it like this way, the way I'm trying to structure things now, it feels more organic. Like I can just throw in more bits of myself in there, while also like kind of still staying on point. If you're coming here from Instagram, yeah, you probably already saw the reel I made showing me and Rachel getting the shots in my living room. It's a lot messier than I would have thought it would be, because we're just using like a small tray, not much depth to it. So I wouldn't expect like the splash to be everywhere, but it was just enough to work with. I mean, at the same time, yeah, it's gonna happen. Doing anything with food or products where you need particles and like that, it's gonna be messy. So I'm just kind of proud of how it turned out, especially with it being like a home project and all. It's just for like a drink we really like. Milkis, if you're watching, hit me up, you know? I love Milkis. My girlfriend loves it. The whole point of this video is kind of me to walk you through the steps I take to make the video, because honestly, it just feels rewarding to have something to look back on, especially the personal shit I make, where it's similar to like personal art, just to keep your creative bones going and like growth. I would just look back on like old travel videos and edits and then just be like, oh, that's pretty good. I can't believe I came up with that at the time, but definitely can do way better now. This is kind of like a version of that, except where I kind of share it to the world, so people kind of get this idea that not get this idea, so they kind of like gauge how much I actually know my shit. And I'm not the master of these things. I'm not the master of making videos or crafting stories or editing. But I know a few things. I know like I learned a load of what I know from like videos like this. So if this helps someone out there, that's cool too. Personally, I'm trying to think of it as kind of like a creative diary. I remember the steps I took, what it took to get here, how I made something, and how I made it happen, you know? It's pretty motivational, and it serves like two purposes. It's like for me and whoever the hell's watching. Hopefully it does serve someone good, right? A lot of the gear we use is pretty basic, especially if it's more compositing, like the Milkis commercial. Can't even call it a commercial. Milkis video. It's heavy compositing. Not too much work on production side, it's more post. That's why we just had 2 shots The other shots you saw in the reel where it was like kind of the hairdryer making ripples in the water, that was just like in case we wanted that shot. But really, when we did the storyboarding, I storyboard now. Well, I always storyboard, but now I'm more consistent at it and I'm a lot better at it, so that's cool. We were kind of sticking to the storyboard, and that's all I needed in like terms of actual camera shots. We went with a white tray, and then we got some club soda because the subtleness of the bubbles, it might not be there immediately, but these little things, the details, they really add up, and I really fuck with that shit. That's why I like shit like Dark Souls, you know? It really just rewards you for looking for these things. Anyways, so we got like club soda, put it on like this white tray that we got at Shop for Less. Is basically like a, I don't know what to call it. It's weird. It has like a lot of DIY supplies. It has some food. It's not a grocery store. It's not a craft store. It's like somewhere in the middle. Anyways, we go there. We got a shitload of our stuff from there because we were trying to find clear, like an acrylic, almost like an aquarium, but we didn't have the money to get an actual like aquarium because aquariums are fucking expensive. And we tried to build our own with acrylic, but that shit was a bit of a fail. So we just went with an alternative, a cheap one. And it's kind of demonstrating like just how far you can go, or how much you can make with how little you have. I didn't even always have this gear. I kind of just had to grind to get here, you know? And even at that, it's really not that impressive in the grand scheme of things, but definitely better than where I started. The point is, I could have done this on my phone. I'm so tired of hearing that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are too, but honestly, you really could make shit like this with your phone these days, and I really could have done it too. But seeing as I wanted to also get better in terms of camera skill for shoots like this, and also like editing the footage and so I can grade better, that's the main reason I did it. I mean, I could probably do another video where I just shoot it on my phone, kind of prove the point. It's these type of videos, you watch them, you know, especially before knowing like how to make them, you're just like, damn, these shots are so simple. There's no way it's that hard. Why would you pay someone so much? Shit like that. But nah, man, like it's a lot of work. Like even for small stuff like this. And I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it, because I think it's just really satisfying to see it all come together. It took more takes than what I showed in the reel. That was just kind of like for time's sake. So I will go ahead and walk you through the edit. So the first scene is just the can rising up in a bubble, and then, you know, the bubble pops and the can falls. So what I did here was I just used this bubble asset, 2 bubble assets actually. So you can only really notice it if you just go frame by frame and slow it down. But if you just watch it first time without pausing, I'd say it's fairly like unnoticeable. So the first thing I did was have like the footage of the can that I garbage matted in DaVinci and kind of masked out manually. You see, this is where I was talking about get it right in production. Save yourself the headache in post, because holy shit. Also do test shots. Where like there's a shadow here from spraying the condensation on. It's not dead center, so it's like doing that weird like fucking hover like to the left and to the right, and it's like going up in height. And I mounted it on molding putty for the hair. It wasn't even like an even surface, so it's like shitty masking on the bottom, but it worked for the video enough, I guess. But the point is, get it right in production and you won't even have to deal with this shit. So now that we have this layer, I had the bubble layer. I did 2 layers of this. One's kind of like a Luma matte, and the other one was just to kind of overlay it. So I turned it black and white, but I was stupid because I didn't even notice there was a fucking part of it that has it in black and white, because they probably made this like with editing in mind. Duh, it's a fucking asset. But I got impatient, so I turned it black and white myself, and then I just upped the contrast so it works better as like a Luma matte. And now we're back in the comp. So I stacked that twice. One is Luma matte, and then one is kind of just to take the color in and make it seem like it's part of the environment. And as you can see, it's working on the can because now it has like this tint over it as if it was in there. Oh yeah, and also I had the can is parented to the bubble, and the bubble is parented to this null layer I have, which has separate dimensions because I want the X position to wiggle. That way, you know, the bubble is free to move on its own without having to be chained down to this wiggle. Basically leaving the wiggle all to the null. As you can see, the null is already wiggling, so Yeah, and this is where the second asset comes in. So here's what it looks like on its own. I had to do some time remapping on this because originally it was in slow-mo. So I had to speed it up a bit, and then I also had to get it to match the same color, or at least as close as it can be. And then I had them like overlay on like each other. So I had a crossfade here, it's really short, but just enough to make it look like natural. Because you know, like a bubble it pops like pretty much instantly, but we did this just for like exaggeration. And then here we have it suspended in the air for a bit because it's a cartoon. It doesn't know it fell yet, so it's not gonna fall. But then it falls. And then we have that nice motion blur enabled. And we're going to the next scene. So let me just play this out for you before I talk about it. The scene is just the can falling, and you can't see like the motion blur as much because I'm on a quarter resolution, but this is a good example of working smarter instead of harder. So you're probably thinking, oh, it's fucking 3D layers and all that shit. But no, it's not. I just made one comp. I did a pre-comp and I made the whole scene in that comp. That way I can just follow the can here by kind of moving or keyframing the position on the main comp containing everything. Think of it as like a giant painting, and I keyframed it to where we kind of just follow the can. Kind of like we're just moving our eyes down the painting, you know? That just saved me a lot of time because I didn't want to have to do 3D because that would just make preview a lot slower and just eat up more time in general. What we have in here is a bunch of assets stacked on top of each other. And like I said, I love the details, so I made sure to put some foreground in there, some background, and then it's always good to have another set of eyes look at your work because I wouldn't have added the foreground clouds if Rachel didn't tell me I should because something felt off. Because if you're working on something for a while, you kind of just like tunnel vision, you're like, oh, that's good. But then you need someone else to look at it because then they can point out, what the fuck is that? You know, this is like 3 separate cloud assets, I believe. So a drink from the heavens, you know, Milkis falls through the sky. I had like a 4th asset where it's like a puff of smoke. That way it's barely noticeable when I watched it, but I just like knowing that it's there. And you know, if there's people like me who like the details, then they'll notice it too. And it's just to make it more realistic that it fell through this cloud. And then it just goes all the way down into this carbonation. And then it stops just before it hits it because that leads into our next scene. So let me play this for you again. So this is where shit kind of goes off the wall. And you don't see all the cartoon assets here, like the drawn elements, but that's because I put them in the comp where I put it all together. Because I'm basically kind of using them to transition over anyways. So this is just a scene by itself without those elements. We cut from the can right about to hit the water. And this is the practical shot of it being in the can. Or being like in that tray of carbonated soda. So I was doing everything I could to just like make this work because, you know, it's kind of like a learning experience. So it ended up working for me. It was kind of making a very rough mask, changing the curves up, and then doing like motion blur and all that bullshit on it. And also overlaying more bubbles on it, which is this. And just having like a white background beneath it. Not really pure white, but the white you would get from like soda, right? I have that just there. And then I also had other versions of fading in and out. Kind of just, basically I wanted to make this look like it was sinking into some soda. That's why I had it scale down slowly. I just pointed my finger at the monitor like you could see it. But yeah, so it's slowly scaling down like it's sinking. Because that's segueing into our next scene. So there we go. And then I just have like 2 splash animations, I believe. Yeah, so this one is the one I put over it in reverse. I had some blur on this and changed the levels a bit and some other shit like scatter eyes to make it look like it's like that spray. Because this is basically like the water coming back down after it's splashed out. This is the splash from the impact. Now you notice there's like a can-shaped hole right here. That's because I did a matte for the can. That way it looks like it's behind it. It's not perfect, but you know, it worked. The can sinking leads us into our next scene. I guess before we go into the scene, I'll show you like what it looks like with the assets. A lot of the assets in this video, the drawn, like the what looks like hand-drawn elements, well, they're actual like digital art assets. I had Rachel draw them, and she could really nailed the brand style here, especially like the bubbles that you see in the cow. She did the cow. It's not like a Milkis cow. There is no Milkis cow, by the way, but there could be one. Milkis, hit me up. Here is when it goes in, and the shot you saw by itself, it really doesn't have much time there because I wanted to keep this strictly 15 seconds. So, and also just to sell the impact more, like these elements needed to go right as soon as it hits, because it'd be weird if the transition, like I let the shot breathe a little bit and then I do the animations for the transition, because it just, you know, it's supposed to be an impact. So this was like the best way to kind of get both worlds together. And when this happens, we fully shift over to the cartoon style, because right at the ending we get the blending of both right here. Live action elements of these carbonated bubbles going up, and then we still have the nice Milkis type background, Milkis type beat, jungle beats, hit me. And I just got like a real quick image of their logo and put in a bubble, because it felt weird having like a hero shot of this just by itself dead center. So I just figured might as well just make some sort of composition. And the only other element I could think of was this. In hindsight, I probably could have used the cow again, but I feel like the cow already served its purpose in the story, so get though. The final scene, this was hella bubbles. So I f***ed up by not being specific in the kind of bubbles I needed. Originally, these bubbles didn't have a fill, and you know, that would be fine, but I needed them to kind of stack over each other and hide the elements behind them. And that wouldn't be possible if they were all transparent, because I needed it to reveal the end shot. So here, let me just open one of my bubble comps, because she drew a lot of bubble assets and I just cloned a bunch of them and animated them. Yeah, so let me turn off the shy layers. I tried my best to be organized and color code it, but towards the ending I was just like, I just need a few more color this, like, cover this spot. So I got really lazy. Towards the end, that's why you see like some red at the bottom, even though it should be stacked in order of color. What I did here, I just had them go all into place, enough to cover the screen. Not completely, like there's still gaps you can see right here. Yeah, so there's still gonna be gaps, but it was definitely enough to where you couldn't see the can pop in. Yeah, the cool and pain in the ass thing about these bubbles is if I just parented them all to one null and made that null the wiggle like before, I ran into an issue because they're all just wiggling the same way. Now there's probably a smarter way to do this, but at the time I wasn't aware, and I'm still not aware now, so if there's a better way, let me know. But I just made hella nulls. I made a null for every single bubble, and it's just for wiggle, pretty much. That is, how many layers is this? 73. This is rookie numbers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I just went into Photoshop myself and I just filled all the bubble layers with color, and here we have like this cute little cow mooing, you know. That's just puppet warp. It's really lazy and easy, but it worked. And here we go, the final reveal. Now let's go over to sound design. Oh yeah, I also finished off the grading in here, but it's just really simple, some boosting of the colors and shit like that, more vibrant. And also I thought this looked weird at first, but it just, because it's kind of zoomed out, so it's like a bunch of really small dots together, and you know how, I don't know if it falls under the same thing as like anti-aliasing and shit like that, but yeah, it looks fine on the render. It's just when you get it really small like this, it looks like that. But personally, sometimes it looks cool. But if this was like an actual paid product, like if this was like a client job, I would definitely sort this out and probably just make it like bigger blots of color to just avoid this problem as a whole. Sound design, yeah, I don't really want to get too much in depth to it. It's just, there's just certain parts I want to mention because it was kind of funny when I was doing it. This part right here. This part. And there's this really low part right here. So that pop, that was me. I had to do that on the mic because for some reason, I could not find a bubble pop sound effect in like the sound library I had. So I was like, F it, I'll make it myself. So I did some shit right there. I should put audio jungle in there so no one else can use it. But this is literally just me making a pop sound. I'll even recreate it right now. Sometimes just literally do it yourself. Oh, this was another one. I could not find any sound that mimics this. Something going through like a thick puff of smoke. So I made this one too, and it was just me going up to the mic like, it was just like a bunch of weird like sounds until I got one that sounded like okay. But yeah, I made that one. I'm pretty proud of those two. I might just put audio junk and the rest of it, yeah, just basic sound design. Yeah, I hope you guys really like the fact that I made it sound like it was underwater when we transitioned to it, and the subtle sound of bubbles still there. That's it for the editing side. Yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, thanks again for watching. This definitely isn't going to be the last from me, and I'll put the links down below for all my stuff, like, you know, socials, other stuff, clothing, and yeah, that's it. Goodbye for now, I guess.